This Fantasy Premier League edition of the Premier League Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by our Patreon. Score exclusive perks and content available only to our patrons at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Welcome, everybody, to the Premier League Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. My name is Malcolm Bamford, coming to you from Newcastle upon Tyne in the northeast of England. Today is Wednesday, the 26th of July, and we are here to launch our FPL League for the season upcoming. I know a lot of people have been asking about it, and we're going to do some FPL strategy, maybe a little mock draft kind of thing, compare our teams with our expert. We've got a guest expert tonight. That's exciting. And also here is Barry Penaluna. Hello, Baz. How are you doing?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were calling me an expert for a minute, Malcolm.
Baz.
Getting a little bit mixed up. Malcolm, you know how I'm doing. I've recorded a lot of shows with you in the last 48 hours, and I'm a bit bored of telling you how unwell I am. So let's just gloss over that now.
Barry's got the man flu, everybody. It's touch and go. We think we might lose him. We also discussed earlier on, if he does die, he's got absolutely nothing that he can give me that I can take off him. He hasn't even got a set of decent golf clubs or anything.
You can have a lizard. You can have the
I
lizard.
don't want the lizard. Or maybe, can I have a barbecue, like a smoker or something?
Yeah,
I'll take a
barbecues. Yeah.
I'm not wishing this on you, Baz. Understand, but this is legally binding, by the way. So if you pop your clubs, I'll smoke some stuff. Just before we get onto the FPL stuff, Baz, the World Cup, the Women's World Cup pick show is still out covering. It goes up Thursday, Friday's games as well. And I think we did all right today, Baz. We smashed the Canada Island game. The books had overreacted and we got the both teams to score, which has been a rarity in this tournament, and the over 2.5 goals. I think you went 2 for 3 today, Baz, so still going okay.
Spain game, took the Spain handicap to win by 5 or more. That finished
Nice.
5-0. Japan game's a bit unlucky. I took Japan to win by 3 or more. They were 2-0 up early on in the first half, and then it just sort of fizzled out a bit, that one. So yeah, 2 from 3, good start. But as you say, if people are following the World Cup, then that episode is still out there, and we've still got all of the next 48 hours covered on that show.
And the summer series continues as well. The Prem tonight, Brentford Brighton kicks off in about 25 minutes. There's been loads of goals in that. Both teams to score looks like free money. But if it's a little bit short, both teams to score with 3 corners each team is 5-4. Baz, a little special on Sky Bet. So I'll be getting amongst that, and then Newcastle play Chelsea. We've got a couple of our listeners out in Atlanta. Joe Dollar messaged us before with his It's Called Soccer t-shirt on, which made me giggle. He's off to the Atlanta game. The double-header, Brentford, Brighton, and then Newcastle, Chelsea will take place in the small hours. I'll watch that over breakfast this morning. But tonight is all about Fantasy Premier League. We'll give our league details out in a moment. But, Baz, we don't have to do the heavy lifting tonight because we've got a man who can. Joining us from somewhere in Germany, via America and Scotland, we think, judging by the accents, it's Mr. Euan Lieth. Euan, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, guys. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, mate, we're absolutely delighted to have you. Right, first thing you need to do is clear up, like, where you're from, what's going on. So we know you work at Rotoballer. We know you do a lot. Rotoballer doing an awful lot of FPL content. Like, me and Barry have been doing some Premier League preview shows. It's been quite a lot of work. Man, the amount of FPL stuff that's coming out of Rotoballer has been absolutely brilliant. So just give us a little bit about how your career, how you found yourself where you are, what you do, your socials, what Rotoballer does, everything we need to know you in before we can move on with our lives.
Yeah, I mean, you said you only have 40 minutes, so I'll try and keep it shorter than that. But yeah, born in Scotland, dad in the oil business, moved from the North Sea from Aberdeen all the way to Houston. Grew up an Astros fan, still there, so good times there. But yeah, got married, moved up to Colorado, been in the TV business for a long time. Been to 4 Olympics with NBC covering the Olympics. And then they moved East Coast. I went freelance. Wife got a job in Germany, and now I'm here. So yeah,
that's outstanding.
And yeah, a little bit of a world traveler there. And then just really picked up with Rotoballer once I moved over here. I've been doing basketball, baseball, football, soccer, F1 a little bit. So Yeah, I'm kind of all over the map, but focusing on baseball this year and FPL, we're really trying to get up there with the written content. There's not a lot of American websites that are kind of focused on FPL as far as the written content goes. So trying to get more Americans involved in this great game.
I didn't quite realize.
Fits in lovely with what we're doing, because as Malcolm said to you before we went on air, the majority of our listeners are American, and you know, we are launching a league and a bit more fantasy content from us this season. So we're hoping to also drag a lot more Americans into the Fantasy Premier League, because it is massive across the world now, isn't it? Sort of
12 million people played last year. Yeah, something.
I think it hit 13 million. I'm sure we had an American winner, came number 1 not long ago as well. So
I think it was two years ago.
Yeah. So, you know, there's players out there, but definitely room for growth in the American market, I think.
Yeah, I didn't realize just how much FPL content and content creators there were out there until we started following a few on our Twitter page. Man, there's a lot. It's a busy area for people, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger as well. So I think you've done the right thing, Euan. I was looking around for an FPL expert to come on, and I saw you on Twitter, and I knew your name somewhere, and then it just so happened I was playing you that week in the British Baseball Fantasy League. I smashed you. Just get it. The only reason I said that sentence is so I could point at it. Yeah, well, just in case you did forget, I absolutely ruined you, Euan. But so I was thinking, why do I know Euan Lieth's name? And then I was playing you in the British Baseball Fantasy League. So it's a weird little conjunction that we found a baseball fantasy playing American living in Germany who can come and talk FPL with us. I'm all for it. We're all for this. If the network let me do baseball picks, so we're all for you coming on here. And one of the most disappointing things I've seen so far, Euan, is that you have a Liverpool top on. Do you want to explain yourself?
7-year-old Euan watching 1998 World Cup as Scotland got thumped by Morocco, so didn't have a lot to watch in the knockout round there. Fell in love with Michael Owen's classic goal from that World Cup. My dad was a Man United fan. My uncle was a Liverpool fan, so I thought, maybe I'll just piss off my dad a little bit and be a Liverpool fan.
That would do
later,
it. Like,
still here. Yeah, he did. So
if you ever do listen to our show, we're not big fans of Liverpool. They're high on the list. Manchester United and Liverpool are probably the two teams that get the most stick. But wait, because we're equal opportunities degens, it doesn't mean we're not happy to have a bet on them. Like when Liverpool beat Manchester United 7-0 this year, that was one of our favourite days of the year. Like we're quite happy to. We're just bitter and twisted Newcastle fans because we've had nothing to cheer on forever, so we just take pleasure in other people's misery. Although things might be changing, hopefully for the Magpies, so we'll get onto that in a little while as well. Did you go to the Liverpool game the other night? Was it the Gruta Firth game?
I didn't go to the Gruta game. That was supposed to be behind closed doors, but when I watched it, there were plenty of fans there. But I was at the Karlsruhe game, the first one.
Okay.
Last Wednesday. So
no. And do you follow a German team? Do you get to any Bundesliga at all?
The local team here, Stuttgart, is in the Bundesliga. They've had some narrow escapes, so they're still there for now. But I went to my first game this year with it was Dortmund versus Freiburg, and that is an unreal atmosphere.
Yeah, it looks good.
I went to Dortmund a few years back, and we got tickets in the yellow wall in the standard terrace. It was one of the best experiences of my life. And we had a game where Dortmund went 2-1 down and came back, won it 3-2 late on. So it was the perfect game script for an absolutely amazing atmosphere. But absolutely recommend Dortmund to anybody for a football travelling experience. It was absolutely something else.
Love that, Baz. Right, okay, we're going to get stuck into some FPL strategy. Once I've told you about our Patreon page, waging the war, as always, at SGPN against corporate gambling. Loads of exclusive content, contests and merch just for our patrons. The monthly SGP Stories podcast is an ad-free, uncensored show highlighting the best stories from decades of being degens. You need to head to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Captain Sanos popped his head up and said, hello, aye, Captain. Extra SGP and DGen points for you, Captain, for eschewing the baseball show tonight. Because we're going live against my other... I'm double parking tonight, Baz. Moonaf and Lonty and the boys are throwing out baseball picks on the other channel. I should have tried hijacking their channel for the second time in a week. But either Captain Sino's double parking as well, watching 2 shows, which is a good effort. But we do appreciate it, Captain. Right, Euan. I'll tell you what I'll do first. I will. So we're Listener League. I'll throw out the deets for our Listener League. The code is... if you are new to it, we did a bit of an idiot's guide a couple of weeks ago. But it's just all run through the Premier League website, premierleague.com. Click on Join a League and you'll get asked for a code. Our code is CVVQAB. That is Coventry, Valencia, Queen's Park Rangers, Arsenal, Bournemouth. I've gone with a full... Queen's Park Rangers is confusing there. CVV. Sorry?
That could catch a few people out.
Yeah, people shoehorning an extra pig in an R in. Well, was that the Queen of the South? I can't think of any other football teams to start with the Q, Baz. Anyone? Trivia time?
Quebec must have a team, surely. I don't know.
All right. Coventry, Valencia, Quebec, Arbroath, Barcelona. £150 in cash. Some merch from the merch store. I've got my SGP top on, looking good. And the Egg in a Cup will be up for grabs. So yeah, get across there. The only rules we've got are in before the season starts, and we throw out the moral obligation that you go and like and rate and review some of our silliness somewhere. So, Euan, I'll be expecting to see your name in that league. General strategy, Euan. Now, you can't win the thing in the first few weeks, but I think you could probably lose it in the first few weeks. So as a general strategy, when you sit down, what's your starting point?
Well, this year it's Erling Haaland. That's the starting point.
Yeah, that's an excellent starting point.
14 million, probably still underpriced. I think it's the most expensive player in the game ever. I think there's been a couple of other guys that have been 14 million, but guy was unbelievable. So start there, and then you have 86 million pounds to get 14 other players. So that's where you want to start for sure.
And I've seen loads of, again, I was surprised at the amount of content there is when I've been looking around. And I saw been loads of people who said, you must use this template. If you don't use this template, you can't win. If you don't use these certain players, if you don't use Brian and Buemo and Sven Botman and Jordan Pickford, these are the only players that are going to allow you to pick a winning team. So, and that to me, I sort of shy away from that. I think I'll do my own thing. So is there a winning strategy? Is there a winning template? Or, are you happy just for, how would the content you're creating, these team previews, so what form of that is that taking in terms of strategy?
So we're really just trying to highlight like a defender, a midfielder, or a forward that new FPL players can kind of get towards, but there are certain guys you want to avoid. Personally, you just mentioned Jordan Pickford. I'm not super sold on him. Dyche ball seems to get a little bit overblown for me. But yeah, like Sven Botman, Newcastle guy, but you guys have some tough fixtures to begin the year, so not sure how many clean sheets you'll get there. So yeah, like you're saying, a lot of people like to tout the template, but those kind of like the Pickford, the Botman, the Buemo kind of guys, those are maybe guys you can go against at the beginning of the year, but you just don't want to, like you're saying, you don't want to sink your ship so early in the year. Like going against Haaland, he's 86% owned in the game right now. Just take it, be boring, and live another day.
I remember totally with Mo Salah 2 years ago, just refusing to put him in, and he scored a gazillion point. You're laughing at this. You remember this, Baz, don't you? Because I just refused.
Doesn't do very well because he's stubborn.
I'm stupid.
The template,
but yeah, you're right. Because if you don't have Haaland, I think this year you can't win. I wouldn't have thought.
No.
So yeah, you've got to do it, and then you play. And by the way, we said on our Idiot's Guide show, by the middle of the season, everyone will have the same 6 or 7 players, and then you find where's your differentials. Your differentials coming, your captain in, and your extra 3 or 4. Baz, you do okay at this. So, do you take much notice of these templates or these must-haves? Or
well, I can tell you, I've made my first draft today. I put an auto pick team in a few weeks ago. I made my first draft today, and I can't tell you, I've got Pickford and Buemo and Botman in my lineup. I mean, Botman, as you say, Newcastle have got terrible fixtures first four, so Botman will fill the bench. But from that point, I will want Newcastle the fixtures turn from week 5, and Botman's a cheap way in to a defence that was pretty good. I mean, this time last year, nobody had Newcastle to start with. Roll forward a few weeks, and everybody had Trippier. And by the end of the season, Trippier was in almost every team. And Almiron made an appearance in a lot of teams last season. So it is the case that, you know, the template is what it is now, but it will quickly change. But it's being able to react to that quickly as well. When you see the likes of Trippier and Almiron, or the two that spring to mind last year, you have to jump in quick. And similar with players like Mbeumo, it might quickly work out that he's not going to be the man. And then you have to get out of it quick because, as we know, there are price changes to factor in. But
yeah, that's the one thing I didn't really understand was that everyone's must-haves. The must-haves because of what they did last season, but they weren't must-haves at the start of the season. So it's just really, really not that simple. No one expected, you say, Almiron to go on that mad tear, and then if you'd stuck with him, he would have absolutely sunk your team in the second half because he didn't score as many goals. He was left on the bench. Same with Trippier. Trippier was an absolute cash cow earlier on. And then later on in the season, as Newcastle kept a few clean sheets.
Brighton would be another prime example. Nobody had Brighton players in their team at the start of last season. By the end of it, everyone had 3 Brighton in because you had to have Estepinian or Encise or McAllister, Solly March, Mitoma, Ferguson. There were so many options and they were so cheap. And that's the thing, is getting those cheap players who are scoring well enables you to have your 2 or 3 premium players to sort of build around. But it's identifying them as the season goes on. Because at this point, you know, we are basing it a lot on last season's stuff. But there'll be new players who come out of the woodwork, and it's being able to react quickly to get them involved.
So what about like the stars and scrubs then? Or I'll punt my bench is a big thing. Do you want players on your bench who are going to play? Because I'll often just find £4 million players. I mean, is that a good thing or a bad thing? How do you set yours up?
So at the beginning of the year when there's no European football, I think you kind of can invest more in your starting 11. But once like Europa League, I mean, Aston Villa, I think they play their first Europa League or Europa Conference Cup qualifier between game week 2, game week 3. So that's a little tricky there. But for the other bigger teams like Newcastle, who are in Champions League, congrats to that. Yeah, you can kind of wait a little bit longer. So rotations will be settled. But once you get to like around wildcard time, you might want to just have a couple of people on your bench that you can play every week, because that fixture congestion around Christmas time, injuries start happening. So you do want some coverage for sure.
That is a really good point. You see, I would never have considered that. It does make absolutely sense that teams are going to play the strongest 11 when they're playing one game a week early on. And then when it hits, that there's going to be some rotation. So you need that safety net off your bench. Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm going to write that down. Barry, I know you had more things you wanted to know from Euan.
I think you covered a few of them. I mean, I was going to ask, how long have you been playing the game, Euan?
Honestly, only a few years, but like it's honestly like I used to be dead set in fantasy. American football was my first love, but it has just totally, FPL has taken over my life. It's very unhealthy. So
do you have a target each year for where you'd like to finish?
Well, I always want to improve on last year's rank, so I did that, but I'm really trying to get into that top 10K one year. I've never done it. A couple of decisions here or there could have gone differently, but yeah, we're getting there slowly but surely.
I think I've got 3 top 10K finishes down the
Have you?
Why
did you tell me that? Why are we wasting our time with you when we could have just had you on?
I know.
To be fair, those top 10K finishes were many years back where we probably had 4 or 5 million and far less content. So I think it was definitely easier if you're going back to 2014s, 15s, things like that, it was easier to break that top 10K. There's far more engaged players and a lot more content out there now. So I think top 100K is a really, really good finish now. I say that because I had 2 of them in the last 2 years. But I mean, top 100K puts you in the top 1% of all players.
Yeah.
So if you can hit, I'm the same as you though. I mean, I'd love a top 10K would probably see me win all of my cash leagues, and that's the most important thing. Whereas a top 100K puts me right in the area where I could compete for it. So that, similar to you, sort of, you have that goal. I think top 10K, it's the top sort of 0.1% of the league. It's a good target to aim for, but it gets harder every year because the pool of players grows every year. But the resources that are available to people now, there's so many sort of planners and fixture tickers, and the content, the podcasts, everything is there to give. The tools are there to give people a real chance of, performing well in it.
So do you play many cash leagues and stuff then, Euan?
Not a lot. I try to limit that. I'm pretty spread across a lot of fantasy sports, so try to spread the wealth there, or the expenses sometimes if the season goes poorly. So
how are you?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you feel fairly settled on your team that you've got at the moment, or do you think there'll be a lot more changes from the start? We haven't come to it. We'll get to that shortly, but
yeah, we're in the dangerous point of the preseason where if I listen to too much podcasts or write about a player too much, I just instantly switch him into my team. But with the preseason game starting now, I think I saw Flecken was in goal for Brentford tonight. So he's a 4.5 million keeper. I think a lot of people are in on instead of Pickford, sorry. But Flecken plays for Brentford now, and they produced David Raya, who scored the most points at the goalkeeper position. So Brentford seems to be a pretty good option to get a goalkeeper. 4.5, you can get some savings there over like a Ramsdale or a Nick Pope or Ederson kind of guy. So that might be a cheap way to spread more money up in the point scoring area of the midfield and the forward.
Yeah,
what you just said there about
Flecken. He will come in for me if David Raya gets sold and isn't playing, because for a 4.5 million option, I think he will be better than Pickford. We talked about this the other day on the show about how it's not all just about clean sheets necessarily. It's getting those save points and the bonus points that come with it. And as you say, if David Raya can top score last year as a goalkeeper, Flecken could be a really, really good option at 4.5 million, couldn't he?
What you just said, Euan, about the more you listen to stuff, the more you change your team around. That is absolutely my kryptonite, and it happens with FPL. It happens with fantasy, NFL, baseball. I listen to a podcast. They'll tell me to pick up a 2-start Auckland pitcher, and I'll just put them in my team, and they'll concede 32 runs in 7 innings. Horse racing, the same. If I listen to every turn of the page of the horse racing newspaper, I'll change my mind when we're at Cheltenham or something, Baz. And yeah, I really stick to my guns, and I've been better at this since we started the show, Baz. Making picks sort of on a Thursday night, betting them, absolutely fine. I need to stop being a little being as flaky as I am, and just taking everything on board that I see. I'm going to
sometimes trusting your own judgment isn't exactly the same as what you said, Euan. I registered just to get my league set up and things like that. I put an auto pick team in 2 weeks ago, and never looked at it until today, and never really looked at much content until today. For exactly that reason, I don't want to get involved now because there's still a lot of pre-season to come. I would prefer to look at it 2 or 3 days before the start of the season and then really set my mind where I want to go, because you will just get influenced over and over again. It could drive you mad for weeks, where I'd rather just pick it up a couple of days before the season, to be honest.
Yeah, that was my biggest swing of the year last year. I was kind of like stuck in the rut of the template after like when Brighton got all those double game weeks last year. It's like, everyone had triple Brighton. No, like you couldn't make any moves. I went on vacation for 2 weeks, and at the last second I was like, oh crap, the deadline's coming along. I brought in Callum Wilson. I captained him for his infamous 48 points, and that was my biggest swing of the season. So sometimes just like getting away from
go with your gut.
The content can just like refresh your brain and just like, because Alexander Isak was the X minutes king and stuff. It was like, he'll get the most minutes, but it's like Callum Wilson scored like 5 goals in the previous 3 games. Like, I'll just get him. Like, sometimes it's just that simple. So
yeah, if you're relatively new to the game, there are definitely things you just mentioned there, double game weeks and things like that. So if you're relatively new to the game and you're playing with us for the first time this year, they're the sort of things that we will cover on the show, because you do need to understand the rules of the game. I wrote an article on SGPN last year about fantasy baseball, and rule number 1 was understand the rules of the game. And I know in baseball it's different because there's different formats, whether it's roto or points or whatever. But in this league, if you don't play your triple captain in week 1, people will do it. You need to save up these double game weeks. You need to save your chips. You need to save your wild cards. So they're the kind of things that we will help and talk you through. Euan's going to walk us through the rest of his initial draft. Me and Basil chirp up if we've got some similar players or real departures. And once I've told you about Underdog Fantasy, the NFL season right around the corner, Underdog Pick'em. It's a great way to get down on a ton of NFL player props. And there's loads of markets over there as well. Plenty of opportunities to win their daily MLB contests. Make sure to enter Best Ball Mania 4, where first place gets $1 million. If you head to underdogfantasy.com and use the promo code SGPN, you'll get a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's underdogfantasy.com, promo code SGPN. Okay, Euan, from the top then, you told us you stuck Flecking in. Me and Baz did a Brentford preview last night. Barry was talking Flecking up as well. So yeah, walk us through the rest of your initial draft. And Baz, if you want to jump in at any point, feel free. But yeah, hit us, Euan.
all right. Well, first off, I have to apologize to you. I lied. I've got Onana, the newest signing for Man United in goal right now. So, yeah, Flecken might get in there eventually, but $5 million for Onana, and then Areola at $4 million there. Sounds like he might win the job over Fabianski, so I'm just going to stick him in there for now. But I think I saw he wasn't with the team for their initial preseason game, but he's there now. On the back line, I've got my main man, Trent. Short-haired Trent is back, guys. I don't know if you heard. You saw the Twitter pictures. He's back. Everybody loves him. So
is that key?
Just short-haired Trent. He's back. So $8 million there. He had a little bit of a down year last year. First 2 preseason games, he's played the 6, which has been a little disencouraging for FPL. But if he gets back to that hybrid role where he really took off at the end of last year, $8 million is going to look like so underpriced. And I've got Gabriel for Arsenal. He came in with, I think it was the 3rd most expected goals last year for a defender. And yeah, Arsenal pretty solid. They've got really nice fixtures to begin the year. So definitely a good pick there. But maybe Zinchenko would be another option. I think he's maybe not healthy right now. So kind of up in the air with that last Arsenal spot. And then Purvis Estupiñán for Brighton. He was amazing. 17 points last year at Arsenal in that double game week. And then I've got Bayer and Pau Torres, the newest signing for Aston Villa, to complete the back line. This is a 3-5-2 right now, but we'll see. That seems to be the popular.
Your first, you're going to start 3-5-2, starting with Estupiñán, Gabriel, and Alexander-Arnold.
Yes.
I co-sign that. I've got the exact same 3
in
my lineup as it stands. I don't have Onana, although I did have Onana at one point. I was £500,000 short, and that's why I've ended up with Pickford at the moment. I thought Onana at $5 million is a real good option. And he's one you can stick. You just set and forget that, won't you? And if Areola does come in at $4 million as a starting goalkeeper, then he's a nice one to have on the bench. Everyone will have him as their second keeper if he does pick up that start.
Exactly.
In fact, most people will have him anyway on the off chance that he does get it at any point, because a lot of people will go with that approach, won't they, of a set and forget keeper and a $4 million bench warmer. As the season goes on, I know it gets more into scenarios where people like to keep a rotation. You know, if you can get 2 who sort of rotate well with fixtures. But initially, I think a lot of people will go with a similar approach to you, where we'll be looking at, one keeper and roll.
I think I find with FPL, there's so many decisions at that deadline every week that if I have 2 rotating goalkeepers, I just know on Saturday afternoon I'm going to be banging my head against the wall. So if I can go there, but usually I find I do the 4.5 price point for a goalie is always the sweet spot. I always kind of regret going higher. Like I'm definitely not going to go with a 5.5 guy, but for now, Onana, I think Man United had most clean sheets last year. So, and he's supposed to be, he could be a bonus point magnet in this Eric Ten Hag system. So if United get a clean sheet, Onana.
I generally always start with a 4.5, but I don't mind Onana at all. So yeah, I've started very similar to you. My other 2 defenders was Botman. As I say, he's there very much for when Newcastle fixtures change. And I think I will want to get involved in Newcastle at that point. And I've gone for Chilwell as my other one. But that suggests to me your midfield or your attack is going to be stronger than mine because you've went for a sort of bit of bench fodder with your defender.
Yeah. But yeah, Chilwell's definitely in my thoughts. He might be an option after to switch from Trent. If Liverpool don't look too hot to begin the year, I think Chelsea's fixtures really turn on that game week 3 and they kind of take off from there. So Chilwell's definitely probably going to climb in price, so that'll be good for you.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, Chilwell first game against Liverpool, so he'll probably be on my bench. But then Chelsea, I've got some nice fixtures. I wanted some exposure to Chelsea, but I really don't know where to go with the forwards. I know there's a lot of people have picked Nkunku. And Reece James is obviously the other option on the other side, but I just can't get Reece James right. I bring him in, he does nothing. You leave him out, and he goes off. I can't get him right, so I'll stick with Chilwell for now. But again, it's one that may change. Interesting you mentioned possibly moving off Trent Arnold at some point, and that's very much in my thoughts. If it becomes a point where he's not going over and above and beyond what James or Chilwell or even Trippier, Trippier's 1.5 million cheaper than Trent Alexander-Arnold. 8 million's a big price, isn't it? I don't think we've ever had an 8 million defender, but if anyone can justify it, it is Trent Alexander-Arnold, isn't he?
Yeah.
So I'm quite pleased with myself at this point, coming into this goal, because I've got Gabriel and SGPN in my team, so you two have backed me up a little bit. However, as I was just talked about the Mo Salah thing earlier on, I can't put Trent in. Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to be my Mo Salah for this year. It's a football decision, which I probably shouldn't be making in FPL, because I just don't think that transition into centre midfield is going to work for him. So I left him out to save some money elsewhere. And yeah, John Stones would be my starting defender. Funnily enough, another one who's kind of transitioning in midfield, but Man City do keep more than their share with clean sheets. I've got Botman on the bench, and I've got Levi Colwell for Chelsea. On the bench, I think he'll come in later on. But yeah, a fairly similar start. So not a million miles away, but I took the risk of leaving Trent out to leave me some money elsewhere. Euan, go forward into your midfield then. Who have you got?
Yeah, most painful omission for me is no Mo Salah in this draft right now, which stings quite a bit after he's been so good to us in FPL over the years. But I've got starting from most expensive is Rashford. United just looking pretty good in the preseason. Rashford was like amazing last year. He was, what was he, 7 or 6.5 million to start the year, 7 million. Yeah. Kind of Raheem Sterling vibes for this year. I'm not entirely sure, like you were talking about, Baz, with your Chelsea exposure. Kind of wondering if that is a route to go. I got Bukayo Saka for Arsenal, Martinelli for Arsenal as well. Go with a double up there. So Arsenal triple up with Gabriel, Martinelli, and Saka. Phil Foden starting to buy the hype there. KDB's injured. Like they're losing players left and right. No Mahrez. It's starting to believe, but I don't know. It could be one night out with Jack Grealish away from getting benched for another 6 games. So that's always tough. And then my last guy here in the 3-5-2 is Mbeumo, because I think without Tony there, he could be that kind of talismanic attacking guy, and he's kind of out of position. Last year he was a forward, this year he's a midfielder, and it sounds like he's going to be on penalties as well, so that's always key in FPL.
Yeah, so I mean, I've got a few similar ones in there. For me, I've gone with Bruno Fernandes over Rashford, saving of $500,000. Not much between the two. I think possibly would have preferred Rashford, but literally that $500,000 wasn't there for me. I've went for Foden. I think Foden at $7.5 million is a great price, with Gundogan and Mahrez moving on. There's more opportunities now for Foden to be playing more regular. I mean, even last season, you think back last season, you think Foden missed a hell of a lot of time. He still scored 144 points and only started.
It was a career high, right? I think.
Yeah, he only started 22 games. So it doesn't need that much of an uptick to push him towards the 200-point mark this season. I think at $7.5 million, he comes in considerably cheaper than the Arsenal players you've mentioned, and the likes of Rashford and Bruno. So I've gone for Bruno, Fernandes, Foden, Saka. I think, as you said, you've got to have 3 Arsenal at this stage because the Arsenal fixtures just look really nice to start the season. I've got Mbeumo as well. I didn't find a way into Chelsea attacking-wise. I just feel like I want to watch a bit of Chelsea. They were so far off last season, and we've talked about this on our other shows. It's a long way back for Chelsea to get back to where they were. And Pochettino's a great manager, but I'm not sure it's going to be an immediate bounce back to challenging for the top 4 for Chelsea. And I want to watch them and see who sort of comes out and sort of grabs the reins for them. So it could be Sterling, it could be Nkunku. But at the moment, I felt like leaving Chelsea alone from an attacking prospect. But I wanted another Brighton player in. And I went with Enciso. A lot of people will prefer March or Mitoma. But Enciso's £1 million cheaper. He had 7 goal contributions in 7 starts last season. He only really started getting more action towards the end of the season and finished really, really strongly. And I think he can start really strongly this year. And at £1 million saving, I think he can sort of push them for similar sort of scores. But yeah, I think Brighton again, they've got good fixtures to start the season. And I wanted at least one of their attacking options in there. So for me, yeah, Bruno Fernandes, Foden, Saka, Mbeumo, and Enciso.
Yeah, we have a great pick.
Yeah, well, we had one of our correspondents on doing a pre-season preview last night, gave out Enciso for the most assists in the Premier League at 125 to 1. It's a little bit of a speculative one. So if that translates, he's going to score
ambitious
some points. Yeah. I was nearly with you, Baz. Bruno Fernandes, Foden and Saka. I can't pick Rashford, Euan. I don't like him. I think he's rubbish. I know. And I have a right paddy about this every week. I end up sort of stamping my feet and sort of gnashing my teeth. Yeah, he's rubbish. So we'll leave him out. I've ended up with Jobalai. Is that how we're saying it?
Soboslai.
Soboslai, is that?
No,
I'd say Soboslai. Soboslai, yeah.
Soboslai, okay. Yeah. I watched the shirt reveal of him saying his name about 15 times, and I think with like 12 different pronunciations. So
I wanted some Liverpool players because I think they're going to score millions of goals. I think they concede millions too. But whether or not he starts, he's kind of a placeholder at the minute because there are gazillions of options for in that price range in midfield. But yeah, again, not a million miles away. My 5th one, who's sitting on the bench, is Joe Linton because he's just the greatest footballer in the world.
I'd say similar. You mentioned Liverpool.
He gets amongst it.
I don't know what. I mean, Soboslai played an attacking role for Leverkusen, didn't he? And had lots of goal involvements there. Again, I just want to see where he fits in with Liverpool. And it is a big regret. And the thing I don't like most about my team is I haven't got any Liverpool attacking options at the moment. So Mo Salah just can't fit in my team. And it might be by the start of the season that I do go with Salah. It'll mean sacrificing Trent and making a sacrifice somewhere else to try and get there. But yeah, beyond Salah, it's just hard to know. Is it going to be Darwin Núñez or Gakpo from one week to the next? You don't know. And on the left-hand side, is it Jota or is it Luis Diaz? And at the moment, that's a bit of an unknown. Soboslai probably will nail down a starting place. But again, just wanted to sort of watch that. But I hate the fact that, and I won't like at start of the season, if I start the season with no Liverpool players, that will be uncomfortable or no attacking Liverpool shaped players, I should say.
Yeah, I think the thing with Liverpool is like that first game. If the first game wasn't against Chelsea, I think a lot of us would have more of them in there. We're kind of like after last season, it was like, ugh. But I think if they come out and smash Chelsea, we are going to be like tearing up our teams and trying to get Salah and Trent and Jota and like everyone that we can
I think
possibly
the good thing
fit
is,
into
though,
our team.
they're beyond Salah, most of them are achievable. You can move from a Foden or a Fernandes or a Saka to players like Darwin Núñez, Gakpo, Jota, Diaz, because they're all in that 7.5 to 8 million bracket. So I think if you've got lots of players in that sort of price range, then there's flexibility there to sort of pivot and move to Liverpool at a later point. Salah's the difficulty. If you don't start the season with Salah, you're not going to find an easy way to get him in, is the problem. It's going to be a 2 or 3 transfer to make it work. And that's what concerns me the most, is if Salah does start strongly, how do I get to him until without waiting for a wild card to come along? So yeah, that's more of a challenge. Whereas, the likes of Darwin and stuff, you can move from a Jesus or a Watkins or whatever to Darwin Núñez easy enough.
Yeah, one of the first teams I built was with Salah and Haaland and Trent, and it was very scarce on the fringes, but it was really nice to have the comfort that I can move to anyone else in the game after game week 1, after game week 2. So that was kind of comforting. I think that's why I always like to leave 0.5 in the bank.
Yes,
for game week 1, just so you have to make that instant transfer. Last year, I started with Kane instead of Haaland. And then after game week 1, I saw his price was going to rise on like one of those sites overnight. And I was like, I just got to go. I got to go now. I got to get him. And because I had that 0.5 in the bank, I was able to get to Haaland. The people that waited, Kane went down 0.1, Haaland went up 0.1. So they had to use a hit in game week 2 just to get him in immediately or wait another week. So that's always something I try to do in game week 1, is leave that 0.5 just in case.
The thing is, as you say, if you can start with Haaland, Salah and Trent, you're locking in almost 700 points for the season, guaranteed, from those 3 players. And it's a good starting point to have. But as you say, it's then making the sacrifices when you can't get players in like Saka and Foden and a strong.
I think if City's fixtures weren't so easy, we would maybe have more of a debate about who we could captain. But it seems like Haaland's going to be the answer for the first 6 to 8 game weeks. And it's like, if you're not captaining Mo Salah at 12.5 million every week, can that be better spread around? Like, are you going to get more points that way? Especially with Liverpool's fixtures a little up and down.
Salah becomes a real option in week 2, I think. Are they home to
Bournemouth?
Burnley, maybe. Is it Bournemouth? Yeah, I mean, that's the one that stands out. Where if you've got Salah and Haaland, that week is a dilemma.
9-0 last year, but Salah did not have an attacking return.
And obviously, Man City have got Newcastle United that week, so it'll be a tough one for Man City, obviously.
So who's the rest of your front 3 then? You already mentioned Haaland. I think it turns out you boys do know more than me about this. I'm just sitting here scratching my head thinking, oh shit, I'm going to have to concentrate much more than I'd figured. So yeah, Haaland is a no-brainer. Who have you got up front with him, Euan?
Yeah, so I think because I went Trent at the back, I don't have the money I want up front to go to one of those 8 million forwards like an Ollie Watkins or a Gabriel Jesus or an Nkunku that you guys were mentioning earlier. So I've got Evan Ferguson here for Brighton at 6 million. He's mighty impressive. He just looks like he is going to take the world by storm. The problem is, could it be a year too early? Maybe. It's just like De Zerbi kind of was taking him on and off the pitch. He might just be like a 59-minute man, which is once you get to 60 minutes in FPL, you get that extra point. Ferguson seems like a little
Welbeck now. He still gets trotted out a lot for Brighton, but he's got to be coming the days where his minutes start getting limited.
And he looked pretty good in that preseason. Yeah. Against Chelsea, he had a couple of good shots. So, but
and then
the 4.5 million dead spot for me right now, just bench fodder, can't do anything else. I think I've got Surridge, but he just went to Nashville, so probably be like a Chris Archer. I feel like I always start with Chris Archer as my 4.5 million forward, so keep that tradition alive.
Yeah, so I've got Haaland, obviously. I've got Gabriel Jesus to triple up. Obviously, you've gone triple Arsenal elsewhere with Martinelli in midfield, but I've gone for Gabriel Jesus at this stage. I was tempted with Ollie Watkins, but it's the fixtures to start with. And again, I think Jesus is an easy one to pivot from. if I want to, once the Arsenal get past those initial really, really favourable fixtures. If I want to change to a Nunes or a Gakpo or Watkins, then options are there. Callum Wilson, Isak, people like that will come into play. And I think that 8 million, if you've got that 8 million forward, there is a lot of flexibility there to move around from week to week. And then I've really spent more than I need to on my third striker, which is Vinicius at Fulham, based on the assumption that Mitrovic won't be there next season. Vinicius may get some attacking returns, but to be fair, I think I'm strong enough in midfield where I'm expecting to play that midfield pretty much every week, 3-5-2. So there probably won't be much room for Vinicius. So it's what I've got my eye on at the moment. My bench has probably got too much value. I'm not going down Malcolm's route of having 3 non-starting defender, on the bench. I like to have a bench that plays, or at least 2 of them that play. And at the moment, I've got Botman, Vinicius, and Chilwell sitting there, which is far too strong, really. So that's where I could sort of try and get to Salah by downgrading Trent Alexander-Arnold, downgrading Vinicius, and possibly Botman, and that might help me. But so at the moment for me, it's Gabriel Jesus and Haaland up front with Vinicius as a backup option.
Well, I had plenty of money left because I didn't have Trent, which enabled me to take Darwin Núñez. I am the big Darwin Núñez truther. I think he's loads of fun. And I think, like I said, I fancy Liverpool to score a ton of goals this year. And Darwin Núñez, I think, could have an outstanding season. And I picked Alexander Isak. Now, what you said earlier on about when the European fixtures kick in, I think could be a problem because I think it's Isak or Wilson a lot of the time for Newcastle. I can't see both playing. I don't think he'll hang Isak out on the left wing, which he did a couple of times.
I think now that we've got Harvey Barnes, that becomes less of an option, isn't it? Harvey Barnes is likely to be playing that role rather than Isak, as you say. So I think you're right. It's one or the other. Yeah.
So again, Isak was a bit like Szoboszlai, just kind of a placeholder, but I did have plenty money left in that situation. So the fact I didn't use Trent, but I'm quite happy with it. Looks good. I've got 3 Newcastle players, which is kind of the first thing every amateur does, is put 3 players from your own team in. So Isak, my bench is, I've got too much money on there, but Joe Linton, Botman, and Colwill, Levi Colwill. So I'm all right with it. 100% it will change at least 200 times between now and August the 10th. And I've got Areola in there. I've already changed it once since we've been recording because you turned me on. So, you know what I said? Oh, I listened to someone and changed my team. Yeah, done it 7 minutes ago. So there you go. But yeah, really looking forward to it. Euan, is there anything else you want to steer us towards before we let the people go?
I mean, just keep watching those transfers. I think last year it was the last week of the transfer window when Andreas Pereira went to Fulham. He was 4.5. He's a gem. So you're going to find there's going to be value here. We might not be with the 3-5-2 this time in 2 weeks. It's just there's so much changing going on. It's definitely stuff to watch. And who knows who's next for the Saudis to come calling to take over.
Who knows where Harry Kane ends up or who Man United end up signing up front. Because that's the other thing, isn't Man U could bring another striker in and then is Rashford quite as appealing at 9 million if Man United have Kylian Mbappe?
I think I saw Elanga went to Nottingham Forest today and he's 5.5 in the game. So if he's a starting mid kind of playing up there, could be an option in the midfield, I think.
Yeah,
and things like the transfers, chips, wildcards, things like that. We'll cover them on a weekly basis on the show and the Discord channel as well. So anything you're not sure about, stick questions in the Discord channel. It's a very sharp place to be, and there's a gazillion people in there who will help you out as well. So
and remember to follow Euan and his Rotoballer content also.
Yeah. Did you give out your Twitter? Your social information, Euan, before?
I did not, but you can follow me on Twitter at Euan or Youout, EUAN or Youout.
Yeah, we'll tweet that out as well after the show. But give Euan a follow and have a look at what he's got going on. So tons of content there. Really enjoyed having you on, Euan. Some really good insight. I think we're on the same wavelength on a few things, so that gives me a bit of confidence that my quick run through today was okay. Hopefully, we'll try and get you back on during the season, see how your season's going, and see if you crack that top 10k.
Brighton have just gone 1-0 up against Brentford with Simon and Dingra scored. £5 million midfielder. So I think I might stick him in. That's the sort of thing I would do. Get him in. Get him in. £5 million.
Scored a hat-trick today, Malcolm.
Oh, shit. Get him in as well.
Richarlison's one. If Kane goes, suddenly Richarlison's going to fall on a lot of people's radars.
Yes, 7 million as a midfielder, playing right up front there.
And potentially, as you say, he could play right up the middle if Kane is to make a move to Bayern, as people think he will. So yeah, Richarlison's one to watch out for. That'll definitely be a bandwagon that could take off.
Yeah.
Thanks, you, and that was absolutely brilliant. Really enjoyed it. I think we're possibly going to get you on as well to talk about Liverpool. We'll do our Liverpool team preview for our team preview series. And yeah, that's it. Thanks everyone for listening. Like I say, get in touch in the usual places. I know you always do. Don't forget the league code is CVVQAB. For anything you need to know, just hit us up on Twitter or get in the Discord channel, or if you're in the comments section next time we're recording the show, just give us a shout as well. We appreciate it, Euan. We'll speak to you again soon. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you down the road. Cheers.